this time, I'll call our annual meeting / special meeting to order. It is January the 12th, and it is 6 p.m. Our first action for business needs to be our election of chairman, so I'm going to turn to our superintendent to start that process.
Thank you, Mr. Medford. Welcome back from the holidays, everyone. I hope everyone is recharged and ready to go. At this time, I open the floor to nominations for board chairman.
I would like to nominate Mr. Medford to continue as chair for this next term. He's informed me that he would like to serve as chair, and Dr. George has, I know we think of routine rotation, he's vice chair, but he is also, and you might want to clarify that, Dr. George, yourself, but...
I am in favor of remaining at vice chair. We've got a bit of a, what's the word I want? Challenging. We've got a lot of change with our new superintendent, and I think, you know, perhaps leaving things in place for this year would be great, if everybody's okay with that. I would prefer that.
I support leaving both Mr. Medford and Dr. George as chair and vice chair.
I'm good.
So I nominate Mark Medford for chair.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, I need a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay.
A motion was made by Mrs. Kersky and seconded by Mr. Mentor to appoint Mr. Medford as board chair. Dr. George?
Yes.
Mrs. Kersky?
Yes.
Mr. Mentor?
Yes.
And Mr. Medford?
Yes, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve as your chair again. We work as a team, obviously, and we've had a busy year, and we're going to have a continual busy another year, I'm sure, as we as our new superintendent is up and going. I mean, at this point, so but I appreciate y'all's support. At this time, I need a motion to nominate a vice chairman, and I think we've already had that discussion, so I'd like to nominate Dr. George as vice chair.
I would second that.
Anybody want to close the nominations?
I would like to close the nominations.
Yes, close.
Ms. Ford?
A motion was made by Mr. Medford and seconded by Mrs. Kersky to appoint Dr. George as vice chairman. Dr. George?
Yes.
Mrs. Kersky?
Yes.
Mr. Mentor?
Yes.
And Mr. Medford?
Yes, thank you.
One thing, Mr. Medford, I would like to just say that again, that we do really work as a team.
We do.
The five of us communicate with the superintendent continuously, and I think we work well together.
At times, it's like there's 5 chairs.
Yeah.
Because you're exactly right.
5 co-chairs.
Because we definitely call each other and look for, and get questions answered when we have them. All right, Mrs. Haywood is not here this evening, so I got to make note of that. She is actually out of town. She had a grandchild born, and so she's right now spoiling the grandchild. And so she couldn't be with us this evening, but we wish the Haywood family blessings of their new addition to their family. And we've already seen some really cute pictures so far, so we welcome her back when she decides to come back, which she will be, I think, this coming weekend. So safe travels to her when she returns. All right, the next item on the agenda is a consideration of approval for the Virginia School Board Association Code of Conduct. Since Mrs. Haywood is not here this evening, and this is a team document, I feel that we all should be present when we sign. I like to just pull that item or table it until our next scheduled meeting, which would be our televised regular meeting, and we can do it there. Everybody's okay with that?
I'm good.
I'm good with that.
All right. So with that, the next item is our organizational business and calendar for 2015. Everybody should have received those documents. I guess my first question would be, does anybody have reference to the resolution for our clerk and our deputy clerk of the board and school board attorneys and such, and what the superintendent's allowed to purchase and what the figure, things like that? Is any questions on the resolution? All right. Is everybody okay with their committee assignments?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm okay with mine.
I'm good.
I'm good. I would like to stay with the York Foundation and with the Hereta Committee.
Okay. And so if everybody's good with the committee assignments, we'll keep those. I'll talk to Mrs. Haywood, and she's okay with those also. The meeting schedule, was sent out, and everybody's had a time to reflect on our work sessions and also our regular scheduled meetings. So if we don't have any questions there, I just need a motion for us to approve Resolution 1501, which would cover all of our school board organizational business for FY15, well,
Move it.
2015.
Move 1501.
Second.
Thank you. Any more questions? Ms. Ford?
Motion is made by Dr. George and seconded by Mrs. Kershke to approve Resolution 1501. Dr. George?
Yes.
Mrs. Kershke?
Yes.
Mr. Mentor?
Yes.
And Mr. Medford?
Yes, thank you. All right, that takes care of our organizational business this evening. Now we're going to move right into presentations. So, Dr. Shandor, I'll turn to you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Medford. At this point in the meeting, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. James, whose team is going to present strategic plan objective goal number 1, or goal number 5, excuse me.
Thank you, Dr. Shandor. Mr. Medford, members of the board, this evening, Dr. Catherine Jones, Director of School Administration, and Mr. Greg Dolak, Associate Director of Facility Support, will update you on accomplishments for the objectives in Goal 5. First will be Dr. Jones talking about the survey results and also about safe, secure environments, and then Mr. Dolak will come to the podium to give us information about performance measures. With that in mind, Dr. Jones.
Thank you, Dr. James. Good evening, Mr. Medford, members of the board, Dr. Shandor, and Cabinet. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I will talk about the objective of Goal 5 of the strategic plan, which deals with customer service surveys. There were 2 surveys given in November. The first was given to principals, assistant principals, and high school athletic directors on the operational areas of custodial services, maintenance, human resources, information technology, school administration, and transportation. A 5-point scale was used, with 5 being the best. There was an overall rating of 4.07 for the operations department, with 58% of the administrators completing the survey. The second survey that was given related to the services of human resources and information technology. These surveys were given to a random selection of teachers, paraeducators, maintenance workers, bus drivers, secretaries, custodians, and central office staff. Now, the following slides will show you the ratings by department for the first survey that was given to principals, assistant principals, and high school athletic directors. On this slide, you can see the breakdown for each department in operations. The blue represents last school year, while the green represents this school year. We were slightly higher overall last year. There were gains in information technology and transportation. The information from the surveys is used to improve services. The directors and associate directors meet with their teams to address issues and look toward resolutions. Now, the next slides will show specific areas within departments. In custodial services, notice that there is no comparative data for pest control knowledge, as this was added to the survey this year. We are down in the area of pest control service satisfaction. However, we have contracted with a company that has been very efficient. I know that this area will improve in the years to come. We are very high in the areas of responsiveness at a 4.54 and accessibility at 4.50. When issues arise, staff will always try to rectify the situation immediately. There are also high ratings for overall cleanliness of schools. In human resources, the next slide, the areas of strength are knowledge, accuracy of information, and confidentiality, while the areas that need improvement are availability of information, courtesy, and customer service. Now, with the new Chief Human Resources Officer now in place, these areas of concern are going to be addressed. In the IT department, We are continuing to improve. Technicians are spending more time in the classrooms helping teachers and keeping in touch with faculty and staff. It is important to ensure that teachers have daily access to technology, which is the focus of our IT department. Also, a third technician has been added to the help desk. The maintenance staff continues to work hard in completing work orders. At times, they have had to wait on parts that have been ordered to complete the job, which has resulted in a 3.57 rating on work timelines. As building and systems age, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain to an acceptable standard. As capital improvement plan projects are completed, systems and building appearances will improve and allow more time to dedicate to general maintenance projects. Knowledge, courtesy, and professionalism, emergency maintenance satisfaction, and responsiveness continue to receive high ratings. In school administration, the overall rating is 4.21 for FY15. We continue to strive to assist building administrators and athletic directors to work through situations, whether it is a crisis, a discipline issue, a parent concern, or a staff concern. We are there for the support if needed. Transportation summary. Overall, the rating is 3.98. This is up from last year. We attribute this to the adjustments that we made in notifying schools and parents of late buses. Staff will continue their efforts to recruit, train, and employ qualified drivers to provide better service. To that end, staff has participated in local job fairs, which has produced several qualified individuals who are now in training. As a matter of fact, we are scheduled to attend 2 job fairs beginning this month. Staff is also exploring other creative options to help with this effort, including hosting our very own school bus transportation safety and recruitment fair. Now, these were the results of the first survey to principals, assistant principals, and high school athletic directors. Are there any questions at this point?
I have a question. Did I jump? Are you going to come back to questions after this, or do you want me to
Sure,
jump
we
in
can,
there?
if you want to, or we can address those now.
Well, I'll go ahead and talk.
And I
Yeah,
have
just a couple of
staff
things.
here.
One, the cleanliness of schools. Somehow that gets me a little bit. Why do we not have a 5? Why do we have a 4 or whatever it is when it comes to cleanliness of schools? Any ideas for that? I mean, any more details on that? I guess I don't understand what keeps a school from being a 5. I know, we all know they should be.
Right. But if I may add, Dr. George, during the day, we only have 1 custodian working. So if something happens during the school day, we don't have the staff there to actually take care of those matters. But in the afternoon, when the full staff comes over to ready the building for the next day, then those issues are addressed. That's just something I'm thinking about as to why maybe during the school day, some issues may not be addressed that occur, because especially if something occurs during lunch, the custodian is in the cafeteria trying to get the tables clean for the next lunch block. So they may not be able to address some issues that may happen in restrooms or what have you during the course of the day.
Yeah. So you think bottom line is understaffed, perhaps?
Well, we do have only 1 during the day. And if you're in a high school, how many individuals are there? You have 1 custodian.
The number of transitions during a high school.
High school day. And respond to orders that may come in, trucks that need to be unloaded, keep the building clean, get the cafeteria ready, and all of that.
Okay. You said there was a third help desk person? that's been
Yes, we
hired?
do have a third person at the help desk,
Okay.
yes.
When were they? When was that? When was
When
that
did
hired?
During the summer.
Summer?
It was not an added FTE, it was a reassignment.
Okay.
See, Dr. Jones, we have computer technicians, either they're in the field, helping teachers on the hardware issues or things that may happen in the school,
Right.
or they're at the help desk to give on-time responses to a teacher that may be having some difficulty.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
And my question, you may be getting ready to answer, so if you are, just stop me and say you'll get to that. But, I mean, we want to strive for the 5s in every category. So what is the process after you do the survey? and you see, oh, okay, maybe we slipped from last year, or this is an area that continuously needs improvement. What is the process to address the concerns?
The directors and associate directors meet with staff, and they talk through what the plan will be for the next year. What is it that we did not do? What can we improve on? And they'll work through that. Yes.
Super.
So
thanks.
there is a plan in place. Yes, ma'am.
Right, and one difficult challenge we have, and I've heard this, well, they came here, they looked, they didn't do anything. They have to come in, assess the problem, figure out, well, I need to order this part or that part before I can come back to address the problem. So you saw someone come and look, but they didn't do anything. The problem is they need the equipment or the part. And sometimes the part may be in maintenance, may be in the IT shop, or it may have to be ordered. We're on the timeline. But in all of that, we want to make sure that's not a safety issue. We want to make sure we address that and then come back later on for the repair. But sometimes it's just the timeless in getting the parts. And I think about some other things, sometimes depend on staff schedule. Just like today, that was an issue that needed to be resolved in the school, but we needed both electricians to resolve it. One was out on leave.
So the principal stepped in to help.
Well, yes, the principal stepped in with the electrical issue. But sometimes we just have to wait till the staff is back to coordinate that effort with some of the work that may need to be done.
I'd just like to say that, first of all, praise staff for taking the initiative and us as a board to want to go out and survey our people. I mean, so many organizations don't. They just assume everything's going the way it should be going, and they don't ask the customer, or they don't ask the people actually doing or receiving the services from what's being done. You know, where can we improve? So, I mean, we're out front. We're doing what we should be doing to look for areas where we can, you know, we can improve in, or, and, you know, enhance what we're doing that we can really continue to shine in. So, but I'll.
The other thing, if I can just add, it's really important, a lot of different organizations and businesses will survey, but then the survey just sort of ends there. So to Ms. Kershke's point and Dr. Jones's answer, these are important metrics. I mean, we have to understand who our customers are and make sure that we take these statistics from the survey seriously and wrap back around with staff to be reflective on how we can improve our practice. So kudos to our team in taking these matters seriously and moving forward with them.
Thank you.
Right. Now, the second survey was given to random staff, teachers, paraeducators, secretaries, custodians, bus drivers, central office staff, maintenance workers regarding customer service for human resources and for information technology. 5-point rating scale was again used, with 5 being the best. The randomly selected staff was divided into 2 groups. One group took the HR survey, while the second group took the IT survey. Now, 55% of the staff responded to the HR survey, while 52% of the staff completed the survey for IT. The next slides will give you the breakdown by areas. This slide shows the results of the random sampling of staff for human resources. There's no comparative data, as this was the first time that the survey was used. The rating is by specific category. You see benefits and compensation, personnel services, etc. The overall average is a 4.13. Overall, staff seems to be pleased with HR. As with HR, this is the first year for the survey for information technology. Overall rating 4.01. Again, we will have comparative data next year. From the random sampling of staff and information technology, the concern was with the wired and wireless networks. There were challenges last year with the internet. This past summer, now the entire wireless network was upgraded to include more access points in each building. Additionally, the internet connection was upgraded from 300 megabytes to 1,000 megabytes. Hopefully, these upgrades will provide a better overall experience. We have over 26,000 wireless devices connecting to the wireless network on a daily basis this year. And some really good news from the survey regarding technology use and our investment in virtual desktop infrastructure, which allows staff and the students to connect to our system from anywhere, is that 52.9% of the teachers surveyed reported that they connect from outside the division on a daily or weekly basis. 73% of the teachers surveyed indicated that the virtual desktop infrastructure makes their work life easier. 59% indicated that it improved the way that they teach, and 28% said that they changed the way that they assign work to students with the availability of the desktop infrastructure. Okay. Now, in summation, we have some really strong points and some things that we need to continue to work on. Each department will continue to work toward improvement. Now, those were the results from survey number 2. Are there any questions on those? Okay. And there's one other piece, okay? Safe and secure environments are also covered under Goal 5. And I want to remind you that Dr. James presented to you in October regarding the bullying prevention strategies that staff implemented in all schools. And some of the points that I'll make are reiteration of the points that he made. Okay, from that very first bullet, bullying prevention resources. There are resources on bullying prevention on the division website for parents, teachers, and students. You can see there. Now, we also have included a reporting form for students and parents to complete and to submit. And that is the reporting form. Let's move back to the second bullet, law enforcement and fire and life safety training. I just can't say enough about the relationship that we have with law enforcement and fire and life safety. Captain Culler and Lieutenant Hahn from the Sheriff's Office and Chief Payne from Fire and Life Safety have been excellent resources for us by providing training to administrators and to custodians on safety drills, incident command procedures, internet safety, and the 800 megahertz radio. As you remember, this year we have a 5th resource officer. Lieutenant Hahn has been a tremendous asset to us. The third bullet, intruder drills are held twice a year. There is an announced drill and an unannounced drill. It is to be noted that when we have the intruder drill practices, we get participation that is above and beyond from law enforcement. There are many deputies who participate on their off-duty time. Again, I want to thank law enforcement and fire and life safety for the outstanding job that they do to ensure that our schools are safe. There's always a debriefing session held after the drill to discuss what went well and what things need additional attention. Here is a picture of a debriefing session at one of our schools. Now, the fourth bullet, we're in the process of installing surveillance cameras at all of the elementary schools. They are being placed in hallway entrances, the cafeterias, and gymnasiums. Installation will be completed by the end of January, if not before. There have also been upgrades made from analog to high-definition cameras at Grafton Complex, Bethel High, Bruton High School, Tabb High School, Tabb Middle School, and Queens Lake Middle School. Please note the clarity in the pictures from the high-definition cameras versus the pictures from the analog cameras. The before pictures are with the analog cameras, and the after pictures are with the high-definition cameras.
Wow. You can really see the difference in that.
Big difference. Now, that last bullet, the crisis management plans are continually reviewed by school-level staff and audited annually by the Department of School Administration. This concludes my updates. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
The bullying prevention resources, all of that is online?
Yes.
Okay. Things like, programs like Rachel's Challenge and some of the ones that have been done in the past, is that a school-sponsored activity for
Yes,
an
sir.
individual school?
Yes, it is.
So we don't fund anything like that?
Usually the PTSA will fund.
Okay.
So the reporting form for the bullying, that's something that a parent could go online and
Yes, ma'am.
complete that?
Yes.
Super.
My question on that, Cindy, too, is to, how many places is that embedded on our website? Is it just under that particular goal, or is it on the front page of our site and down in the corner with the other links, or is it in multiple places, I guess?
It does have multiple links, but we can certainly review opportunities to make it more visible throughout the website.
So I think I've seen it. I mean, obviously on the front page, but I don't know if it was down in the box where, something like that should be out there and out front.
Or be in multiple locations so
Be
that
in
folks can
multiple.
access it.
Right. Along with the hotline number. Super, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Any other questions?
Dr. Jones, thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Dolek now will talk about performance measures.
Jones. If I could add one item before Mr. Dolek speaks, I'd like to speak to the intruder drills. I had the opportunity to go to the Grafton Complex this week, as well as to an elementary school over at Dare Elementary. And I can't tell you, the collaboration between all law enforcement and our school staff is amazing. I was blown away by the level of detail of the debrief and the planning session that goes into that, as well as when I was in the school. Obviously, I knew when the intruder drill was, but to watch our staff and how they reacted within seconds, sweeping the hallways, getting kids covered, and going through that process, I was unbelievably impressed. So that's a real compliment to that relationship and to the services that they provide. So,
I know a lot of time has gone into the planning and even up to the point where we are now, and I think Dr. Jones can contest to this, that other jurisdictions are actually coming to York, wanting to know how we're doing it, what we've done to get to the point where we are. And I think Lieutenant Hahn and I think maybe some of our staff participated in the Safe Schools Conference and a
Yes.
training that was held for the entire Commonwealth of Virginia, from everybody from school administrators to safety officers to law enforcement. So we're actually conducting trainings at a state level that people from your staff and sheriff's office participate in. So everybody works very well in that area.
yep, thank you. Mr. Dolek? All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jones, Mr. Medford, members of the board, Dr. Shandor. I'd like to take some time this evening to talk to you about an objective in Goal 5, efficiency and safety, that addresses performance measures. Operations departments including information technology, transportation and vehicle maintenance, building maintenance, custodial services, and human resources use the performance measures to enhance the quality of services we provide to support the instructional program. You will notice that there are performance measures on this slide for both finance and operations. Tonight we will discuss the operations measures towards the bottom of the slide. The finance measures will be discussed at a later date. Before you are two documents. One is a copy of the operations performance measures PowerPoint slides, and the other is a spreadsheet with a full listing of the performance measures for operations areas. This evening I will highlight some of the measures within the complete list. The first area of discussion is transportation and vehicle maintenance. The two measures are total operating costs per regular student mile and bus road breakdowns per 100,000 student miles. In total operating cost, you will notice a slight fluctuation over the 3-year average. This is driven mainly by the cost of fuel, parts, and employee compensation. In the second measure, bus road breakdowns, you will notice a slight increase. Factors that affect this measure are an increase in the bus replacement schedule from 12 to 14 years, in addition to an increase in the cost of repairs. Our next area is custodial services and building maintenance. The two measures we will discuss tonight are total annual custodial cost per 100,000 square feet and percentage of safety work orders accomplished within 3 working days. In the first measure, you will notice a slight decrease over the 3-year average. This can be attributed to an increase in overall building square footage, primarily from recent additions and nearly level funding. In the next measure, safety work orders, There's an increase in the completion rate. This is significant because as we focus on safety issues, we continue to address security needs as they arise. Factors affecting completion of safety work orders are a longer availability of parts, developing new solutions, and workloads at any point in time. In all cases, the concerns are addressed immediately and rendered safe for the students and staff until a final repair can be made. The next area is network administration. This encompasses all of the wired and wireless networks and management of the servers and storage of data. The first measure, average server availability, has remained constant at nearly 100%. The second measure, wireless devices connecting to the network on any given day, is a new measure this year. With the increases in wireless device usage, we will continue to monitor these numbers. The last measure, user documents and files stored, is significant because the number of documents and files saved, as the number of documents and files saved rise, additional server space will be required to meet the demand.
I think this is significant for a division our size and our investment we've made in technology. This is, I mean, nearly 100% is something to brag about. Because I know other divisions or departments or even companies have difficulties in this area quite a bit. Good job.
Our third area this evening is computer maintenance. This is the maintenance and repair of the division's computer hardware, including computers, monitors, LCD projectors, printers, document cameras, VCRs, wireless keyboards and mice, in addition to resolution of software issues through the technicians at the computer help desk. I am pleased to report that the IT department continues to resolve a high percentage of issues on the same day the issue was reported. This maximizes the opportunity for students to utilize technology in the instructional program. Issues that can't be resolved in one day are often caused by aging equipment or equipment that needs to be returned to the manufacturer. While discussing computer maintenance, care must be taken to ensure the system infrastructure is maintained and regularly updated, as several servers, hubs, and switches are subject to failure with age. Our final measure this evening is energy management. You will notice an increase in the cost of electricity per 1,000 student square feet. This is affected by the actual cost per kilowatt hour as well as changes in the weather patterns. In usage of electricity, the increase was caused by an unusually cold winter, among other factors. Finally, in electricity cost avoidance, measures taken over the years, such as geothermal HVAC systems, occupancy scheduling, internal and external LED lighting retrofits, and HVAC upgrades have resulted in savings. The division continues to look for savings. Our latest effort is the automatic shutdown of all computers at 10 p.m. daily. As a result of our continued efforts, 14 of our schools were designated Energy Star rated schools in FY14. Pictured in the next slide are principals and IT staff with their Energy Star plaques. These plaques will be installed in the buildings by maintenance staff at a later date. An Energy Star qualified school meets strict energy performance standards set forth by the EPA and uses less energy, is less expensive to operate, and causes fewer greenhouse gas emissions than its peers. We look forward to increasing the number of Energy Star rated schools as facility improvements are made. Thank you for your time this evening. Once again, please reference the complete operations performance measure spreadsheet for further information. Are there any questions?
Any questions, Mr. Dolek?
No, good report.
Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Great. These updates, they come and it's fantastic to see leaps and bounds of where we've been, where we're going. And appreciate the strategic plan update. Yes, Dr. George.
It's also a good opportunity, budget season, to take a look at, positions we've cut and things we've done in the past. how has that impacted some of this? You know, we can directly see what directly correlates to that. Custodial, for example, I'm still thinking about that. You know, we cut them, you know, we're the ones that made the cut, so we need to just make sure that, you know, that things are where we want them to be. So these are really good metrics to take a look at right now this time of year.
And I honestly look forward to next year's report, because I think we will see the percentage of customers who are pleased. And when I say customers, I'm referring to the people who work in our schools. I think the numbers will go up closer to that 5. I feel positive.
I think so too, but like Dr. George said, some of the things that we've had to do, the difficult decisions we've had to make, you know, I hope staff, I mean, and I know that y'all will come forward to us and say, I mean, we've damaged an area, or we find an area that we need to take care of, and we bring that to our attention, because I think that helps us go out into the community and have dialogue with with the people that you know, elect us here to say, hey, you know, we've had to make these difficult decisions. Now look where we are. Look what's happening, and then justify why we have to put it back. So, all right, which leads us into, that concludes our strategic plan update,
Yes.
correct? Okay, so now we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of what's going on with the budget. So,
right.
Dr. Shandor, I'll turn that back to you.
Absolutely. So at this point, Dennis Jarrett's now going to share information regarding the FY expected budget.
Thank you, Dr. Shandor, and Mr. Medford, Dr. George, congratulations on your appointment as chair and vice chair again next year. And what I'm going to do is just very quickly, if you'll look in your packet, you have these 2 pages. And I'm going to just speak very briefly about those, because this is primarily a housekeeping item. Each year we have to do a revised budget, if you will, and this year that page that shows the various categories and the operating budget is the one that I'll be speaking about first. This is these changes that we're talking about here are changes actually that in some cases you've already approved. If you think back into September, you approved the amendment to the Title I budget. Remember that $429,000? That's now incorporated into this spreadsheet that you have in front of you. And also some other grants changed. For example, during the year we received that state technology equipment grant for roughly $95,000. That's incorporated in this. We've received a number of adjustments in some Title I grants as well. So all of those are rolled into this. In addition, we also have positions that get shifted during the year. For example, we might budget for, and I'm just pulling this number off the top of my head, we might budget for 30 kindergarten teachers. But as the staffing starts unfolding, we might say, wait a minute, we need another kindergarten teacher, but we can shift one from another level. So when we shift that FTE, we have to shift the dollars to accommodate that as well. So that's incorporated in this change in addition to the other grant changes that are in there. And that's pretty much it. So what will happen is this operating budget for fiscal year 15 expected will come before you along with the normal budget that you get for the upcoming year, FY16 in this case. So in March, you'll be looking at both of those. But there's something new that we're looking at this year, and I want to refer you to this next page. It's in your packet. This is it's called an internal service fund. This is new. And again, if you think back, I believe it was in the September, no, it was actually in June. In June, we brought an action item to the board, a motion to approve a health and dental insurance fund. You approved that motion. We have set the fund up. The fund is actually operational now. And the reason we set that fund up was all of the cash in our health fund and our dental fund was previously handled by either Anthem or Delta Dental. Now we have that cash at the treasurer's office. So the treasurer has all the cash. As a result of that, we have to pay all the expenses directly and re-record all of the contributions either from the employer and the employee. So we have to now set up a budget for this. So with your 15E budget that will come to you in March, this page reflects what we think is going to be close to the fiscal year 15 budget for that. Now, interestingly enough, when we move into 16 budget, you are going to see another sheet, if you will, for the FY16 budget for this fund. It now will become an annual fund that you'll be looking at. That's just a part of your review. Okay, so those are the 2 items that tonight, dealing with the expected budget that you'll be looking at in March. Be glad to answer any questions you might have about any of this. Again, this is pretty much housekeeping. With the internal service fund is a fund that's already operational. Again, you already approved it. We just now need to set the budget up for it. Now, the budget will not be officially set up for this until March when you approve the actual resolution.
Dennis, a quick question on the internal service fund. Does this fund, does the treasurer have the ability to invest or to, so this fund can grow through interest and?
Yes, sir. That's one of the advantages of having it under the treasurer's office. Although we did also earn interest with Anthem, but the treasurer has a little bit more flexibility, and so we do anticipate the interest revenue. However, as you probably well know, in your own investments right now are not really doing that great, especially in the things that the county can invest in legally. But, you know, what, every little bit helps. So, you know.
Legally.
Yeah, legally. For example, they can't go out and invest in equities like you can. Okay, there's a certain parameter in which they can do. And so, but they're limited in terms of where they can put the funds at. But yes, that's a definite positive to this. And of course, the real positive side of this is that the money's in the hands of the taxpayers, or in the treasurer, who actually is working for the taxpayers.
Right.
So that's the real positive to this. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, we can move right on into the second piece of this, which is the FY16 budget. And I'm going to start that off with talking about the governor's proposed budget. Now, you should have this in your packet as well if you want to follow along and take notes and so forth. This spreadsheet is, what it does is it reflects what the current year budget for 15 looks like for our state revenues, okay? That's the column that says school operating budget for FY15. Then it shows in the next column the governor proposed for FY16. A couple of things now. The governor released his proposed budget on December the 17th. As you know, that is a proposal. That is not set in stone. It's got to now go through the General Assembly. The General Assembly is scheduled to start meeting, I believe it's Wednesday of this week, the 14th of January. Eventually, you're going to see a proposal out of the House, you'll see a proposal out of the Senate, then you'll see a proposal that comes out of the Conference Committee. So you've got 3 more milestones before you even have anything that you can start looking at as showing General Assembly, I guess you might say, consensus. But then it's got one more step. Then it goes to the governor, and then the governor has to sign off on that budget proposal. So what you're looking at here is really the first step in the state process for the budget. We got a long way to go. The state budget does not end, it's not scheduled to end until the end of February. Now, that's assuming they don't go into an extended session, which is always possible. Let's hope that doesn't happen this year. So last year they were fairly prompt with it. At the very last minute, they did wrap things up, which was good. So we're looking at that as hopefully the deadline. Now, I want to talk to you about some of the specifics in this. First off, what York County has going for them, which many school divisions do not, is our enrollment's going up. Our enrollment's projected to go up 250 students. Now, that is a sizable increase, especially for a school division this size. There are schools in other areas in this region that are seeing their enrollment actually decline. So this is a positive thing for the school division. It's positive in that for every additional student we get in, we get additional state revenue. Now, there's a flip side to that. For every student we get in also, there's a cost associated with that. And that cost usually plays out in terms of additional teachers, additional paraeducators, additional supplies, and those kinds of things. So there's a cost. However, it's a positive thing to be on the growing end on a net basis in terms of net resources coming in, as opposed to being on the downside where you're losing students. Composite index is staying the same. That's another positive thing for us. And just to remind you, the composite index is the index the state uses to determine what the local government's ability to pay is. And York County is a fairly high ability to pay locality per the formula. So if you start looking at the detail of the proposal of the governor, you'll see sales tax is scheduled to go up under his proposal by $339,000. Now, I say his proposal, he really doesn't control sales tax. General Assembly doesn't control sales tax. That is simply a projection from the economic folks at the state level. And that projection is an increase, but I would point out that increase is not as strong as it was projected for a year ago, but it is still a positive number, so that's good for us. Right below that, you'll see an increase in basic aid of $602,000. This is where our that 250 new students comes into play. That $602,000 would not be there if it weren't for those additional 250 students. So again, this is something I think your county has going for us that some other school divisions this year may not be looking at. I would be remiss if I didn't point out compensation supplement. Right now, there is no proposal at the state level to contribute any revenue to raising teachers' salaries at all. Last year, there wasn't. So, I mean, this is becoming almost a trend, if not already a trend. And it's a trend that I think we all should be concerned about, because the state has historically provided some funds each year to provide an increase to teachers. So what this means is this: any increase that gets provided to teachers is going to be provided to you by either cutting your budget, getting additional funds from the local government, and that's going to be about it. And so, I mean, it really does put a burden on school divisions when this happens. But you know, we have to work within the resources that we have. Special education, you'll see that's going up. That's just a function of, you've heard us say many times over the last year, special ed numbers are growing. Our December 1 count continues to go up. It went up again this year, so that's being recognized in this. And as we all talked about many times before, this number of the total amount of $3.2 million doesn't come close to covering all of the special ed cost in the division. It's really probably less than a third. Textbooks is going up a small amount. Here's one that's important: employer shared benefits, because this is kind of interesting. I want to take you over to the second page of this, and then I'll come back to this spreadsheet. You'll go over and you look at this number right here. This is the governor has proposed for the VRS rate for the teacher pool, and that's the pool that most all administrators and teachers and 12-month employees are in. He's proposed the rate go down from 15.5 to 15.15%. Now, in years past, we always kind of cringed a little bit when somebody said they were going to lower the VRS rate, because what that meant was it's a pay me now, pay me later kind of a thing. So we were always thinking, okay, you're going to reduce it this year, but it's coming back to us in the next biennium when you do the reevaluation. Well, this is different. The governor has proposed putting $150 million, moving it over to the VRS system, which would then buy down the rate. So it's actually being pre-funded, if you will. So if that were to continue to be approved by the General Assembly, the VRS rate, expenditure rate, would go down by it's actually 0.0035. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but let me show you what that means in terms of expenditures. That means that in terms of our expenditure budget for VRS, it will go down by $222,000. So that small percentage factor has a huge impact on what we have to pay out for retirement costs. And that is why this shared benefit number is going down by $7,000, because the state also has a formula, the formula for basic aid also has them paying in a certain amount for VRS. As that number drops, their contribution drops as well. Now, I'm going to take you right on down to the grand total here now, and you'll see total state revenue is slated to go up $1,047,000. This is a positive thing, and I will emphasize again, that's being generated primarily by the additional students that we have. Then you look at the adding into that the $222,000 in expenditure savings we will have with the VRS rate reduction. Total resources available is going to be $1.27 million to the school division. I would remind you there was a number of years recently where there was a decline in this number, or it was flat, or in one year it was like a $300,000 increase. So this is a positive item for the school division, again, driven by the additional enrollment in the VRS.
Dennis,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry, go ahead, Rob.
I'm trying to get excited over this rate reduction.
Yes, sir.
But he's got to come up with 150 million, is that what you said?
No, he's got that into his proposal. So he's put it into his budget package.
Where'd that come from?
Well, now, you're asking a question, I can't, I'm not involved at that level of the state.
Okay, so that is already there? the
Yes,
money
well, that's
there.
his proposal.
Proposed.
I'm not gonna say that money's there and done, because the General Assembly ultimately will have to
Yeah.
approve that.
But your sense is, pretty good chance that could happen. Never mind. That's non-committal.
I tell you what, trying to guess what's gonna happen is really a game I probably better not get into.
It's just great news, I mean. I hope
It is very
does,
good
but-
news. Well, what's really good news about it is that it's being pre-funded. The proposal is to pre-fund it. If this were just, let's reduce the rate to .0035, I think you would see school divisions and everyone else saying, don't do it, because we're gonna have to pay for it down the road. And I think that's the difference in this. So, yeah, I think it's gonna be positively received by most folks, but how that'll
Okay.
play out.
All right, so we saw the result of having a fixed VRS or
Yes,
still
yes,
fixed.
we've been down that
Yeah,
road.
been down that road. My question is, we're in the second year of the biennial. How close is the governor's proposed to what the second year of the biennial was already out?
Yeah, it's a little down, especially in the sales tax area. The economy in Virginia is not chugging along as well as they thought it would. In fact, I'm appreciating you bringing that up, because I should mention, state agencies have been cut this year. Okay, K-12 has not been cut. The General Assembly and the governor agreed that in this year, that FY15 round of reductions, they were not going to reduce K-12. That is a good thing. I mean, we've had our share of reductions in the last 6 years. So that's a positive thing, even though the economy is not, I don't want to say that the economy is not down, it's just not as progressed at the same level as they thought it was going to. So it's not met the projections yet. And they're doing the same thing for 16. The projections are still, the actuals are not coming in as strong as the projections were a year ago. And that's why sales tax is not increasing at a much higher level than what you saw up on the screen. But it is early. I mean, they are doing these projections 12, 13 months out. So, I mean, things could change over the next several months. The economy picks up, that number could change. So we just want to keep our eye on it and see where it plays out. But again, the good news is for FY16, it's pretty much flat. If we didn't have the enrollment increase, our revenue would be pretty flat right now, which is, in the big scheme of things, could be seen as a positive when we're looking at reductions at other places at the state level. But the good news is we have enrollment increases, which is going to help us.
The LCI, this is a year for the adjustment on the
No, sir,
LCI,
it's
if
not.
it were going to happen. That's next year?
That would be next year. They do it at the beginning of the biennium.
So no change this year?
No change there, and that's a positive item for us as well.
I just read an article this morning about the Northern Virginia counties talking to the state about improving their local composite index.
Well,
Which made me nervous.
We're going to weigh into that discussion because, as you know, Northern Virginia really drives the train on that. And, so we'll be watching that discussion very closely if it does come about.
The Hatfields and the McCoys, that.
Well, I don't think they'll pull out the hold harmless again, like they did.
Well, that might be what they're trying to edge for. If
Maybe.
What could happen potentially is the composite index for the northern part of the state could go up, and the rest of the state could go down. When that happened in the reverse a few years ago, there was a hold harmless put out there for the rest of the state. So that could be an argument that they might be starting to advance now. If it does happen a year from now, remember us when that happens, that kind of a thing. But we're not there yet. We got another year on that one. So, then, Mr. Mentor, did you have a question?
Oh, no, sir, I'm
okay.
fine, yeah.
I want to take you now to one more slide, and that is looking at the overall preliminary outlook on revenue as it stands today. And this is, I think, on page 3 of that handout. And if you look, and you'll see, here's the governor's proposed revenue of $1,047,000, and we drop on down. The federal impact aid, I'm still looking at a reduction in that. It's a pretty small reduction, but we've got to start thinking about that in these out years because, prior year payments are starting to now come in more frequently, and also the appropriation at the federal level is leveled for a number of years, and it could very well go down in the future years. So we got to start planning for that. The Department of Defense funding that we get, and this is not the DOD grant that we get, this is just money we get from the DOD based on the number of federally connected, military connected students we get. It will go up by $71,000. I have a question mark for sequestration because sequestration is scheduled to come back in fiscal year 16 at the federal level. Don't know what's going to happen with that. Let's hope that somehow that gets mediated in some sort by the powers to be. And then the county, we don't know about that. We have no formula with the county, so we are waiting to see what kind of numbers they're going to bring forward for us. Of course, you may end up, most likely the superintendent will end up preparing his budget based on what he deems appropriate for a local contribution request, and you may very well be in that same situation before we really know how much money we're going to get from them. And that's not unusual. That's pretty typical for what we have to work with. Then there's some small minor adjustments in local miscellaneous revenues, coming down to a net revenue increase of $869,000. Now, I want to take you and show you some other things that I think really are very positive for us. We talked about this at the last work session, and as I mentioned then, this is a done deal. Health insurance for our employees is going to go down by 3.6% in FY16. That's for the plan year that begins in 16. Their plan year starts on October the 1st, 15, and it runs through September 30 of 16. But we're looking at a 3.6% reduction, and that reduction will take place for the employer. That's where the savings of $381,000 is. The employee will also see a reduction in their cost, assuming that we allow that to pass through to them. So the employee will benefit in net take-home pay being greater if that's transferred on to them at 3.6% as well. So that's a positive item. I was reading an article today. Another school division was looking at a significant increase in health insurance. So here's an area where, again, we are kind of setting ourselves apart from some other localities. And I have to tell you that this is partly due to the fact that you changed the plans a couple of years, but it's also due, a major contributor to this is we just had some great experience. I mean, we are self-insured, and so when we have good experience, that translates into lower premiums, or at least premiums not going up at a higher rate. And we've been fortunate in that area for the last 2 years. This is the second year in a row we've had a decline in our health insurance. Attrition savings of $1.2 million. This is not based on a projection for next year. This is based on where we are this year. So we feel pretty comfortable with this number. It's a high number. But we've used $1.2 million in the past and some other fiscal years, so it varies. But this is a number that what effectively you're doing with this is you have the ability to take budget money that's allocated right now for 16 and reallocate that. So $1.2 million, you will be able to reallocate that to other initiatives and other things that you would like to do. And then the VRS expenditures reduction in the rate translates to $222,000, coming to a net expenditure reduction of $1.8 million. Significant number when you consider our budget. A very high reduction number for us to be able to work with, meaning we have total resources at this point of almost $2.7 million to look at as we start formulating the FY16 budget.
Question. Impact aid, what's the number roughly? Do you know roughly how much impact aid we get?
Yeah, we budget $9,450,000 for impact aid.
All right. So, and as it goes down, I mean, is this an annual thing we're seeing every year?
No, it's actually, it's been at $9.45 million now for a number of years. It's been at least 5, maybe even longer than that. Yeah, it's been a number of years. So this is the first time a reduction, and the reason being is because prior year payments. We've been, the
They're
department
about caught up on those, aren't they?
starting to get caught up on them, but they had up to 5 years to pay out prior year payments. So we were getting payments in for fiscal year probably 9 right up until fiscal year 15, the year that we're in. I think we got payments this year for fiscal year '09 or fiscal year 10. So that's how far back they go, but they're getting caught up on those now.
So you don't see a scenario where this goes away?
Oh, no, sir, no, sir. Impact aid, that's the one thing I feel comfortable in saying. Because I say that because, remember, impact aid is reimbursement to school divisions for lost tax revenue. These people that are coming, these military students coming from military families, in many cases are living on federal property. You do not pay any taxes when you live on federal property. No real estate taxes, most of the time, no personal property taxes, as well as some other taxes. So I don't see the government being able to wash their hands of that completely. There have been a number of moves in the past to eliminate some sections of impact aid, but I don't see it ever going away. And some of those, I guess you might say, that drum beating in the past to eliminate some parts of impact aid haven't been as strong as they've been in the past either. So I don't think it's going to go away, but what concerns me is the prior year payments are getting caught up on that. And the second piece is the appropriation is staying pretty level. So what happens is when that appropriation stays level based on the formula, the way the funds are distributed, we could end up with less money.
Dennis, what year was it that impact aid did take a dive, and that's when the stabilization fund was created?
That was in 1995, and that was exactly what I'm talking about here. What happened was the government shut down. Remember, that was in 95 or 96 when the government shut down, and they stopped making payments. When they stopped making payments, then we got nothing for half of the year, and so that was when we had to make a reduction in a half year. But what happened was, the very next year when the government got back operational and they started making payments, we got an onslaught of payments in, and that's how we created this revenue reserve fund. We took that additional revenue from the next year and created the fund, and we have an agreement with the Board of Supervisors with that now. And that's always an avenue that we can use if the funding were to ever really have a significant reduction in any given year. We could go back to the Board of Supervisors and ask them to appropriate some of those dollars. We've never done that. We've always tried to, I personally have always tried to take a very conservative look at impact aid when I budget for it, because it's truly, in many respects, it's unpredictable. What the unpredictable nature of it is in when you're going to get the payment. You can pretty much figure out, if you know what the appropriation level is, what you would get. The question is, when are you going to get it? And that's the more difficult part of it.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
The Bethel Manor housing project, when it was owned by the government, and now the buildings are managed by a private firm, those buildings that were built, are they owned by those private firms?
Well, the buildings are owned by it's called privatization, and they are owned by the private firm. But the key to this is the land is still owned by the federal government. As long as the land is owned by the federal government, then they aren't paying taxes on it.
Well, who pays the taxes on the structures?
No one does.
The private companies
They do
don't
not
have to
pay
pay?
taxes on this. No, sir, they do not. There's no tax revenue coming to the county for this. So what happens is those homes go tax-free, if you will, and that's why impact aid is so important to us.
And aren't we one of the, top 5 in the nation for federal property? I guess San Diego, I know it's huge.
Yeah, federal property, we're one of the highest in the country on that. There's 4 steps in the formula. 2 of the steps were like 1 and 2 in the nation with that. But that could change because there is a formula change out there in the mix. So when that formula hits in, we're still going to be in the top 10, but we may not be top 1 or 2. Because what will happen is the way the formula is going to work is it's going to change some things. We're going to get the same amount of money. It's just going to change what our ranking would be. So, but no, we are the highest. We have the highest level of impaction of students in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Roughly 42% of our students are federally connected. We are the highest. No other school division in Virginia has as many federally connected students as we have. We probably, I think we even have the highest level of what we call Category A students, which are students whose parents live and work on federal property. Prince George is pushing that number up pretty good, but I think we still have a higher percentage than they do.
So that's 42% that's 42% that they may be civilians but work on federal property?
Yes,
that
ma'am.
includes that too?
Yeah, for example, NASA,
Right.
parks, postal services. If they work in a postal office and the post office is owned by the federal government, that's included in this as well. Yeah, anytime a parent either lives or works on federal property, we collect that. But we have a pretty high mix of the other category, which is the parent lives and works on federal property. Roughly 23% of our 42% is that higher number, which is good. And that's where Impact Aid pays the most money to us, right there.
All right, any other questions of Dennis?
Thank you.
All right, I think at this time, we're
Dr.
going to move
Shandor.
into Dr. Shandor's stuff. He's got a pretty thorough run here, so, but it'd be easier for you if we just let you run through this and do questions at the end?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be all right with board members. The first thing I want to do is thank Mr. Jarrett for his expertise and leadership in the area of budget development. He has many years of experience and such a high level of attention to detail with every dollar we receive and every dollar we spend. So thank you again, Dennis.
Thank you for
I
that.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we can go to that first slide. Okay, as I begin this presentation, it's important to note that this will not include my proposed budget, which will be issued in February. This presentation represents preliminary information used to guide the development of the budget.
We don't have this in our packet. This is just something that's on the screen. Yes. Okay. Okay, all right.
Okay. I want to begin with reminding the school board and the community of our budget journey through the last 6 years. From 2010 to 2013, the state revenue we received during the 4-year period was decreased, which impacted the school division to the tune of $9.2 million. So during this time frame, we provided no raises, no step increases, and no position regrades. In 2014, while the state budget remained relatively flat, the county contribution increased $1.2 million, and our operating budget also increased $1.2 million. Additionally, health insurance rates increased 17.2%. We were able to provide a 2% raise, not including the 2% shift, which was mandated by the state for VRS purposes, and no step increases. In FY15, state revenue increased by $2.9 million. Now, on the surface, this looks great. However, of that $2.9 million, $1.8 million went to the VRS state mandate. The county contribution last year was increased by $880,000. Additionally, health insurance rates decreased by 3%, which saved us $318,000. And we provided an average of a 3.1% raise for eligible staff. Now again, this information is a reminder to the community of where we've been and where we've made cuts. As you can see, 124 permanent positions have been were cut during the 2010-2013 school year. In 2014, 19 permanent positions were cut. In 2015, 16 permanent positions were cut. So we've cut 159 permanent positions since 2009. I will share with you that I understand how difficult this is, but I want to also publicly praise this school board for making these tough decisions. They have protected the classroom. They have maintained a teacher-student ratio, which is a strategic goal, and has kept our class sizes to the lowest in the region. However, while we're making consistent gains in student achievement, there are areas of concern that are a result of the reductions which have occurred over the last 6 years. This brings me to my FY16 budget priorities. Now, developing a school division budget is quite a challenging process. Weighing the wants and needs of the school division is difficult. My main focus is for us to be good stewards of the funds and ensuring that we are being fiscally responsible. Understanding that our mission is to engage all students in learning the skills and knowledge needed to make productive contributions in the world. Therefore, the focus of these priorities support our mission and the strategic plan. As I indicated at the Board of Supervisors School Board Joint Session in December, staff compensation, transportation, and technology are my 3 top priorities. Now, before I dive into these, I want to reiterate what Dennis shared a little earlier this evening. We have thoroughly reviewed this budget and identified areas of reduction. On this slide, you're looking at $1.8 million of reductions through attrition, health insurance, and VRS reductions based on the governor's proposed budget. So now let's dive into each of the priorities. First, as I shared in December, one of my main responsibilities is to continually attract, recruit, and retain the highest quality people in YCSD. Preliminarily, I've looked closely at staff compensation. This slide and the next slide are simply the cost variables for each of the items listed. Please understand that these items on these slides are not my recommendations. The cost for providing a step for all licensed staff is $725,000, and that equates to an average of 1.4%. The scale adjustment reflects a 0.6% increase, which is $291,000, for a combined 2%. For non-licensed staff, an average increase of 2% would cost us $525,000. We've also examined what the cost would be in order to restore one step for all eligible staff members. Under this assumption, the cost of a restored step for those eligible licensed staff members is $506,000, which equates to an average of 1.04%. And for non-licensed staff, the cost is $402,000 for an average of 1.46%. For priority number 2, I want to remind the school board and the community, again, from our joint session in December with the Board of Supervisors, that I've shared these statistics. In our bus fleet, we currently have 169 total buses. Presently, we have 23 buses which are over 14 years old and or have over 200,000 miles. This is an area which we've had to reduce in recent years in order to protect the classroom. We're looking at utilizing funds to replace buses over the next several years in order for us to get back on track with our normal replacement cycle. And priority 3 is technology. The life expectancy of technology infrastructure, such as storage systems and servers, is 5 years. All of the division storage systems which operate mission-critical applications are more than 5 years old, while 75% of the division's physical servers, which keep our virtual desktop environment for staff and students operating, are also more than 5 years old. Additionally, we need to address the life expectancy of the 2 NetScaler clusters. The NetScalers balance the load between servers as thousands of students and staff access them at the same time. As I've said, tough budget decisions have been made in order to protect the classroom, but as technology supports major classroom tools such as Aspen, Benchmark, and SOL testing, this area is a priority. In summary, in looking at staff compensation, transportation, and technology needs, it's important for me to share that the need in each of these areas is substantially greater than the preliminary information I'm providing. However, I realize and understand our current economic status and will strongly advocate for our needs, understanding that over time, we will gradually move to where we need to be in each of these areas. Next, Dennis shared this at our last school board meeting, school board work session in December. This is the last year of the mandate, meaning we must complete the VRS shift to employees, which is the remaining 1%. Following suit, in the past, the school board has provided 0.1% to hold staff harmless regarding the tax implications of this mandate, and dental insurance is to be determined. As we are expecting an increase of 250 students based on our projections for next year, this slide is critically important. Again, it's essential to understand the school board has a vision and mission which is student-focused, and a strategic plan, goal, and objective which directs our average class size to 25 or less for elementary and 30 or less at the secondary level in core classes. With that said, due to increases in enrollment this year, we added 4 regular teachers above what was originally budgeted, and we will need to add 4 more for FY16. This current school year, we added 4 special ed teachers, again, above what was originally budgeted, and we will need 2 additional in FY16. And as a reminder, these positions are federal and state requirements. We will need to add 2 regular paras and an additional $20,000 for materials and supplies for FY16. I've shared the 3 main priorities. However, there are a few other items which, while not as significant in total dollars to the school budget, are important. This includes virtual high school, textbooks, New Horizons, and student testing materials. With the resources we have, it's important to note that we believe we will meet our textbook requirement for FY16 with a $50,000 increase. This is another example of an area where additional resources will be needed in future years. Additionally, as noted, the New Horizons estimate of $53,000 is an estimate. This amount most likely will change in the next few weeks. In summary, I'm in the process of completing a budget proposal which is based on the needs of the school division and is fiscally responsible. In YCSD, we have needs in many areas, and I recognize that, and we need to be reasonable in our approach. We're not in the position to address each of the cuts made during the last 6 years. However, we can and must begin to make progress in ensuring that we have the necessary resources to address our students' needs and support our highly dedicated workforce, which includes 890 teachers and the 850 staff members who support teachers. Thank you. This concludes my presentation. School board members, if you have any questions, Dennis and I will answer them.
I think I have a, I know where you're coming from, but in terms of when you put dental insurance to be determined, I think every staff member out there is going, oh no, are they going to take away our dental insurance? Which I'm probably not the one to talk about that being the dentist, but the bottom line is it's a nice benefit for people without paying. You pay a mere fraction what you do for the medical. So I guess I just don't want the viewing public to think, oh no, they're getting ready to take that away. So I don't know if there's anything you can elaborate on in terms of
the amount
of that.
Yeah, well, what we're waiting for is every year they have to do the actuarial study on the dental insurance to determine what the rates will be, and we anticipate that coming out the end of January. So once we get that, then we'll know what the rates are going to be, and then we can start talking about, take that TBD off and say, well, the rates are going down, or the rates are going up, or they're staying the same. But the plan is that the dental insurance right now is going to remain in place for next year. The only question is what the rate's going to be as we move into this. And just to remind you, the dental insurance is one, we actually have more people on our dental plan than we do on our health plan. So because of that, it's even a more mature, if you will, actuarially matured plan. So the increases and decreases in that plan tend to be very, very moderate when they happen. So I wouldn't expect a big increase. I wouldn't expect a big decrease. Where it'll fall, we don't know yet.
I just thought that was important.
Yes, thank you. That's good clarification.
It's one of those things you don't realize, but if you didn't have that, the amount of money the family would have to pay pretty much eats up any increase you get pretty quickly. So I think it's a very nice benefit for people, and I don't treat a lot of YCSD employees. That's not, it's just simply an objective opinion there.
Yeah, it's an important benefit for our people. I tell you, just by the very sheer numbers of people that are in it, it's very important to them.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Are any other questions on the superintendent's thoughts here?
Just a little feedback on the textbook fund, because I spoke with a couple of parents this weekend who had college kids home from school still, and they said that one of the biggest obstacles was learning to read the textbook in college, because they said they didn't read the textbooks in high school that much, and they felt like it was because the textbooks were so old with outdated information that they weren't used. And they said that was one obstacle they had as freshmen in college, because they had the latest edition textbook and they had to read 80 pages before the next class. And I got to thinking about this year's budget, and I thought, oh my goodness, we're not replacing our books until they're 13 years old. And that could be hindering our students when they get to college if they're not provided with newer textbooks than 13 years old, and especially since we keep cutting that area. So the textbook fund is something that I would like to pay a little closer attention to this year.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
The 13-year cycle.
13-year cycle.
Yeah, I think we've all been concerned with that, and even last year when we sit there and shaking our heads going, what do we do? There are times when we have year-end funding that we will replace or do something with.
But it still doesn't bring you
Still
back.
doesn't,
Yeah, I mean,
right.
we're talking, we're on the edge of the textbook replacement program. In other words, we don't have sufficient funds to break that 13-year cycle she's talking about. I mean, we're lucky to stay on a 13-year cycle, to be honest about it.
Mr. Mentor?
I'm good. I was just remember how much had been cut from textbooks. We had to figure
Yes, sir.
$650,000 out there at one
Yeah,
time.
we've cut about $300,000 out of the textbook account in the last 6 years. It's been done over a number of years, and in all fairness, though, in the beginning years of that reduction, we did have stimulus dollars that helped replace some of that. So it's only been in the recent several years where there's been no other funds to replace it with, and that's where now the rubber's starting to hit the road now in this whole thing. So as Dr. Shandor mentioned, it's going to have to be an area of improvement. We're going to have to look at this. The question is, what other area, we can't do it all at once. We've got to look and see what we can do, make the best of in the short run, but in the long run, we've got to make these things whole.
Because we have to provide safe transportation. That's an area that we cannot ignore.
We cannot. And compensation, I mean, I feel, and I know you do, and I know the superintendent does, compensation has got to be our number one priority, because, you know, I want to remind folks that for 5 years, our staff did not get a step increase, for 5 years. So we have a teacher now that might be on step 1 with 1 year of experience, on that same step with another teacher that's got 6 years of experience. They're working right next to each other. So, I mean, you know, those are things that we have to be concerned about. Compensation is
I think that, you know, this is not the time or place to have this discussion, but I think that maybe we as a board might want to, and work with our superintendent and staff to start, you know, developing a plan, long-range plans. You know, where, you know, what, we know where the goal is. We know you can come back and say, this is what the textbook expenditure line item should look like. This is what the transportation line item should look like. This is what we know these steps are, you know, and stuff's going to cost. So we start looking at some long-range planning so we can sit there and go, we know what we got to do next year before it even gets here. We know that these are areas where if we don't go in these increments, we're not going to reach our goal. Because it took us 5 or 6 years to get in this.
That's an excellent point. We didn't get into this situation overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. I think it's going to take a plan of action that's going to go out extended years.
Well, I guess, can you walk us through timeline? I mean, we kind of know our timeline, but so the residents and everyone watching at home can kind of have our budget timeline as far as, you know, next steps where we go from here.
Yeah, well, the very next step is going to be release of the superintendent's proposed budget, but that won't happen until after your next work session. You've got a work session scheduled in February, early February, and at that work session, superintendent will actually be bringing to you a preliminary look at his proposed budget for FY16. Right after that work session, that week, the finance department will be putting the superintendent's proposed budget together. We'll be getting it to the printer, and we'll be releasing it both online and in hard copy. That really sets the stage for your work, because then, once that's out there, you hold a public hearing on that budget in February. So at the February school board regular meeting, there's a public hearing on the superintendent's proposed budget. Then you take that information at your work session in March, and then you start formulating what you feel is the budget you want to see, if there's any changes to that, or there may be no changes to it.
By then, the state should be done, we hope.
Well, the state should be done by March if everything goes right. And then we end up with, at the March, I think it's the March, I don't have the exact date of it, but in late March, you will be approving your proposed budget, which will then get sent over to the Board of Supervisors, and then the Board of Supervisors will use that in their deliberations as to what they're going to end up providing to us as a contribution. So that's the short process. Now, I can tell you, all this can be drawn out. Number one, if the General Assembly doesn't approve a budget in end of February, now you're locked into not knowing what your state revenue is going to be. So we have to kind of guess at that. And typically when that's happened, we've used the governor's proposed budget, send that over based on your budget proposal, send it over to the Board of Supervisors. And then the supervisors will not approve their budget until, I believe it's, I think it's in May, early May now. And very first few days in May. So then if they adjust your proposed contribution from them, then you have to go back into your budget and make adjustments. So what all this means is this, is that you probably are going to be working with your budget at a minimum up until the first week of May. Potentially beyond that, if you think back 2 years ago, we were working on the budget in June. because the state had not approved their budget, and we had everything else we needed, but we couldn't finalize it until June.
All right, well, thank you for that, Dennis. So we have our work cut out to us. Mr. Minter?
Yeah, just one quick question.
Yes, sir.
With fuel prices dropping, have you looked at any projections of
Yeah,
what that's gonna do?
that's a bright sign for us. It really is. The fuel prices have dropped, and we're gonna be looking at trying to pick up a bus or two with the money that we're saving.
Okay.
So you'll be seeing that coming through in the next few months, assuming everything keeps going the way it is. We hope to pick up a bus. Remember, one bus costs almost $100,000. So, I mean, but it's something. And so, yeah, we've been very pleased with what's happening there. Now, what'll happen next year, we don't know, but this year we have seen some savings in that area.
You must have been reading my mind.
Yes, sir, we have. We've been watching that, and I've already told Dr. James, be ready, because I think we might be able to buy a bus or two before we get out of this year, so.
I like it when Dennis brings us good news.
Yeah,
you know?
I know, I know.
Well, I know I'm bearing a lot of bad news, but.
I think tonight, they have given us some fairly good news, and we know we have needs, and we know we can't fix everything in this budget. But, hopefully we can continue to be on the right track. I think last year with the new teacher plan and the step increase for everyone, that put us on the track. I would hate for us to go backwards. And so I think I'm pleased with what you've brought us tonight. I think this just puts us one more step ahead, even though we're backpedaling.
Yeah, 3 or 4 steps behind, trying to catch up. So, yeah, very good presentation. Thanks to the team tonight for bringing us this information, and we look forward to moving forward from here, which completes our presentation, so unless there's anything else. Nope. Okay. So our next item, we do have one item under consent. It's a consideration of approval of an additional school-sponsored varsity activity film festival at Bruton High School and Tab High School. So do I have a motion to approve consent item A?
I move to approve consent item A.
Have a second?
Second?
Mr. Minter? Are any questions? Staff need to elaborate, or pretty much, okay. All right, Mrs. Ford?
A motion was made by Mrs. Kershke and seconded by Mr. Minter to approve the motion. Dr. George?
Yes.
Mrs. Kershke?
Yes.
Mr. Minter?
Yes.
And Mr. Medford?
Yes, thank you.
Before I just have a comment before you're done.
Okay, well, the next item would be closed session, so this is a
You're
time for
done.
comments.
Yeah, I was just gonna, just kind of kudos for Dr. Shandor and staff that he communicated with. We had that cold weather last week? And just, some of the communication that you had, I thought was just tremendous, and this is what's gonna make things more and more efficient. Just for example, you personally contacted each principal that morning to ask them how their building was and the status of their buildings. With transportation, bus drivers made sure they reported 30 minutes early. Mechanics were deployed to Bruton, Graft, and Tab. Dispatchers reported early to assist with driver absences and telephone calls. Spare buses were parked inside the garages overnight. With HVAC systems, building overnight, setback temperature was elevated to 67. Those types of things. Custodial, they were reminded to disconnect water hoses on the outside of the building and survey the building upon arrival. I just think this is just a great thing to do. Not only does it save us money, it makes us more efficient, and it makes us work better together. And it's just a testament to your leadership and the communication that you have with all these folks that shine right there with you. So
Thanks. Well, I'm going to pass that kudos on to Dr. James and his team, because his team who's behind us, they did a wonderful job preparing schools that day, so we can, it was cold. It was real cold.
Real cold.
But our team was prepared to receive students and move on through the instructional day, so it's a kudos to Dr. James.
thank you.
And I want to thank Dr. Shandor for recognizing the team. They put in a lot of hard hours, long hours, but they want to make sure that our schools are operating. So I want to, again, say thank you to my team back there for their efforts and keeping me on track.
Absolutely. I guess my question would be, do we need a short recess before we go into our closed sessions?
Yes.
All right, then we're recessed until we come back.
All right.